25 before the hour. While you were listening to commercials here, I was watching, and there are a whole bunch of chipmunks that have gotten loose in there, and they're running around all up and down Mitt Romney's shoulders and into his hair. It's the damnedest thing. Let's go back to the Romney-Obama first debate.
Let's talk about corporate taxes. Now, I've identified areas where we can right away make a change that I believe would actually help the economy. The oil industry gets $4 billion a year in corporate welfare.
Oh, come on, get brave. Come on, Mr. President.
Governor Romney refers to, they don't get.
Kick ass.
Now, does anybody think that ExxonMobil needs some extra money when they're making money every time you go to the pump? Why wouldn't we want to eliminate that? Why wouldn't we eliminate tax breaks for corporate jets? My attitude is if you got a corporate jet, you can probably afford to pay full freight, not get a special break for it. When it comes to corporate taxes, Governor Romney has said he wants to, in a revenue-neutral way, close loopholes, deductions. He hasn't identified which ones they are, but thereby bring down the corporate rate. Well, I want to do the same thing, but I've actually identified how we can do that. And part of the way to do it is to not give tax breaks to companies that are shipping jobs overseas. Right now, you can actually take a deduction for moving a plant overseas. I think most Americans would say that doesn't make sense, and all that raises revenue. And so if we take a balanced approach, what that then allows us to do is also to help young people, the way we already have during my administration, make sure that they can afford to go to college. It means that the teacher that I met in Las Vegas, a wonderful young lady, who describes to me, she's got 42 kids in her class. The first 2 weeks, she's got them, some of them sitting on the floor until finally they get reassigned. They're using textbooks that are 10 years old. That is not a recipe for growth. That's not how America was built. And so budgets reflect choices. Ultimately, we're going to have to make some decisions. And if we're asking for no revenue, then that means that we've got to get rid of a whole bunch of stuff. And the magnitude of the tax cuts that you're talking about, Governor, would end up resulting in severe hardship for people, but more importantly, would not help us grow. As I indicated before, when you talk about shifting Medicaid to states, we're talking about potentially a 30% cut in Medicaid over time. Now, that may not seem like a big deal when it just is paper, numbers on a sheet of paper. But if we're talking about a family who's got an autistic kid and is depending on that Medicaid, that's a big problem. And governors are creative, there's no doubt about it. But they're not creative enough to make up for 30% of revenue on something like Medicaid. What ends up happening is some people end up not getting help.
Jim, we've gone on a lot of topics there, and so it's going to take a minute to go from Medicaid to schools to oil to tax breaks and companies going overseas. So let's go through them one by one. First of all, the Department of Energy has said the tax break for oil companies is $2.8 billion a year, and it's actually an accounting treatment, as you know, that's been in place for 100 years. Now
it's time to end it.
And in 1 year, you provided $90 billion in breaks to the green energy.
Time to end it.
Now, I like green energy as well.
Oh, sure you do. You like green beer. No, wait a minute. You're a Mormon. He likes green energy. What the hell is green energy to him?
Actually, this $2.8 billion goes largely to small companies to and so forth. But, if we get that tax rate from 35% down to 25%, well, that $2.8 billion is on the table. Of course it's on the table.
Oh, really?
It's probably not going to survive if you get that rate down to 25%. But don't forget, you put $90 billion. Like 50 years worth of breaks into solar and wind.
Is that a smashed fly on his lapel pin? That is just bugging the hell out of me. Give Jim Lehrer a call. You've got his number. Call him up, Kathy. Ask him.
This is not the kind of policy you want to have. You want to get America energy secure. The second topic, which is you said you get a deduction for taking a plant overseas. Look, I've been in business for 25 years. I have no idea what you're talking about.
It's because you're a dumbass. That's why.
But the idea that you get a break for shipping jobs overseas is simply not the case. What we do have right now is a setting where I'd like to bring money from overseas back to this country. And finally, Medicaid to states, I'm not quite sure where that came in except this, which is I would like to take the Medicaid dollars that go to states and say to a state, you're going to get what you got last year plus inflation plus 1%. And then you're going to...
Yeah, that's what he'd like to say. And then he'd take the money and put it in an account in the Bahamas or someplace,
was
right?
Floated by Tommy Thompson.
Tommy Thompson?
Republican and Democrats said, please let us do that.
Tommy Thompson?
We can care for our
Wait a
own
minute.
poor.
Isn't Tommy Thompson the one that just said a couple of days ago, it's all over the boob tube, Tommy Thompson said that he was going to destroy Medicare, and this schmuck is quote. Well, of course. Oh well.
Democracy. Don't have the federal government tell everybody what kind of training programs they have to have and what kind of Medicaid they have to have. Let states do this. And by the way, if a state gets in trouble, well, we could step in and see if we can find a way to help them.
Yeah, we can always do that.
The right approach is one which relies on the brilliance of our people and states, not the federal government.
2 seconds, and we're going on still on the economy on another part of it.
Okay.
All right. This is segment 3 of the economy. Entitlements. First answer goes to you. 2 minutes, Mr. President. Do you see a major difference between the two of you on Social Security?
Well, he quit asking that question.
I suspect that on Social Security, we've got...
What's the major difference between you and the governor's shoe size?
Structurally sound. Is going to have to be tweaked the way it was by Ronald Reagan and Democratic Speaker Tip O'Neill. But it is, the basic structure is sound.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about the values behind Social Security and Medicare. And then talk about Medicare, because that's the big driver of our deficits right now. My grandmother, some of you know, helped to raise me. My grandparents did. My grandfather died a while back. My grandmother died.
Were those the ones in Kenya?
And she was fiercely independent. She worked her way up, only had a high school education, started as a secretary, ended up being the vice president of a local bank. And she ended up living alone by choice. And the reason she could be independent was because of Social Security and Medicare. She had worked all her life, put in this money, and understood that there was a basic guarantee, a floor under which she could not go. And that's the perspective I bring when I think about what's called entitlements. The name itself implies some sense of dependency on the part of these folks.
I can't do this, Kathy.
Like my grandmother.
I have to.
There are millions of people out there who are counting on this. So my approach is to say, how do we strengthen the system over the long term?
Yeah, that's a good idea. One of our GK in the chat room said, Obama ought to stop right now and turn to Romney and ask to see his birth certificate. Why don't you do that? Why don't you do that, Mr.
Where
President?
some of the money is going. $716 billion we were able to save from the Medicare program by no longer overpaying insurance companies, by making sure that we weren't overpaying providers. And using that money, we were actually able to lower prescription drug costs for seniors by an average of $600. And we were also able to make a significant dent in providing them the kind of preventive care that will ultimately save money throughout the system. So the way for us to deal with Medicare in particular is to lower health care costs. When it comes to Social Security, as I said, you don't...
William in Hollywood is telling me here that dot on Mitt's flag pin looks like a leaking oil pipe or one of those trick water squirters. Come over here and look at my flag.
We talk about entitlements. People become concerned that something's going to happen that's going to change their life for the worst. And the answer is neither the president nor I are proposing any changes for any current retirees or near retirees, either to
not
Social
this year,
Security
right, Mitt?
or Medicare. So if you're 60 or around 60 or older, you don't need to listen any further. But for younger people, we need to talk about what changes are going to be occurring. Oh, I just thought about one. And that is, in fact, I was wrong when I said the president isn't proposing any changes for current retirees. In fact, he is on Medicare. On Social Security, he's not. But on Medicare, for current retirees, he's cutting $760
That's
million
a
from the
lie.
program.
You son of
by
a
not
bitch.
overpaying hospitals and providers, actually just going to them and saying, we're going to reduce the rates you get paid across the board. Everybody's going to get a lower rate. That's not just going after places where there's abuse. That's saying we're cutting the rates. Some 15% of hospitals and nursing homes say they won't take any more Medicare patients under that scenario. We also have 50% of doctors who say they won't take more Medicare patients.
Oh, my God.
We have 4 million people on Medicare Advantage that will lose Medicare Advantage because of those $716 billion.
That's a lie.
I can't understand how you can cut Medicare $716 billion for.
Look up, Mr. President. Quit looking down.
Putting some back.
There you go.
Prescription program. That's $1 for every 15 you've cut. They're smart enough to know that's not a good trade. I want to take that $716 billion you've cut and put it back into Medicare. By the way, we can include a prescription program if we do improve it. But the
let's take a break. We got to talk about this, Kathy. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can keep doing this. Let's go to a break. We'll be back. It's just starting to irritate me, to tell you the truth, to see Barack Obama standing there with his eyes down, while this smirking bastard continues to lay out the lies. Obama ought to be looking him in the eye and giving him the evil eye. Just give him the evil eye. Just look at him. Stare the son of a bitch down. But I wish somebody would tell him, Mr. President, stop looking down. It looks like you're looking at your feet. It looks like you're standing in a classroom and a third grade teacher is telling you you're in deep crap because you tied some girl's pigtails in a knot.